Welcome to the Y on Earth Community's Stewardship and Sustainability podcast series. Today we have the opportunity to visit with Sara Drew. Hi, Sara.
Aaron, great to be here.
So great to visit with you. I'm thrilled we have the opportunity to talk about your book and a whole bunch of things related to the healing of our planet.
Yeah, it's wonderful to finally meet you, and I feel that, so many of us are here on this journey right now to really creating the new dream for Mother Gaia, for Mother Earth, and it's great to see you and have this time to see where the symbiosis is happening.
Absolutely beautiful. Well, let me, for our audience, let them know a little more about you, and then we'll dive into a conversation. Sara Drew is the visionary author of the eco-feminist novel Gaia Codex. Her work catalyzes powerful blueprints for the future deeply rooted in the gnosis of the past. With a global social media following of over 150,000 people, Sara is a mentor and teacher for women worldwide and has been a featured speaker at the graduate level and at organizations such as Google and ABC Deepak Homebase. You'll be able to get a lot more information about Sara's work at GaiaCodex.com as well as saradrew.net. There's an H in Sara, and we'll put all this in the show notes. And Sara lives with her husband in Manhattan and on a lush forested farm in the Hudson Valley called Rhine Valley Farm. And you can go to rhinevalleyfarm.com to learn more about the farm itself, and I assure you there are some exquisite pictures and videos there. I was looking at that the other day. So Sara, it's oh my goodness gracious, it's just such a joy to be able to visit with you and to talk about the way you're employing storytelling to help transform human consciousness. And I noticed when I started reading Gaia Codex that, oh my gosh, this is such an intense experience, the experience of reading the story. And I'm wondering, how would you summarize what you're doing in the story for the audience? I hope lots of folks will end up getting the book. It's beautiful, by the way, and reading it. So how do you summarize it for people?
Yeah, I think the top storyline about Gaia Codex is that it's about an ancient lineage of women that through the rise and fall of cultures have held regeneration codes for the planet. And when there's times of economic and environmental collapse, shift, and transformation, in this mythos, these women come together to help birth the world anew. The main arc of Gaia Codex is told through the eyes of Lila Sophia, which is a young woman who, in kind of a classic heroine's journey, loses her parents and then must find these priestesses, but also find herself. And the book, in many ways, delves into a lot of what we are coming to realize as the truth of our time. And it's the idea that, as a species, we're at this choice point to come together to see if Homo sapiens continue to live on the planet, and how that actually looks like, feels like, tastes like, how we come together as kin and community. It's an adventure story.
It's an adventure story, and it's amazing because it starts off with a bang, so to speak. There's so much energy in the action as the narrative starts to unfold. It's exciting, and it's even a little bit. I found myself feeling, oh my gosh, this is going to be a pretty intense experience, and it made me sense that I will probably have a different experience of reality when I'm finished with this story, which I read a lot. I love to read, and I wouldn't say that about a lot of the things I read. Sure, some are interesting and might introduce new concepts, but my sense is that with Gaia Codex, there is information transmission in that story that truly helps transform our consciousness.
Yeah, that is the intent of the book. Thank you for reflecting that back. The book was really born for me as a writer, as a midwife, as a creator. You know, all these things, as you know, in creating, you become all these different aspects. It was born out of deep prayer. It was born out of a retreat of several years, and was born out of a need really to help bring some of these jewel seeds to the public arena at this time in the form of story. And you know, the path of creation, you know, as you know, sometimes creating these things, I really had to do it with prayer and faith, and sometimes eating a lot of lentil soup.
Lentil soup? Why lentil soup? That's so interesting.
Because it was a way to sustain myself food-wise. And, you know, I ended up being very blessed in receiving a bequest where I could retreat and write for several years. But prior to that, there was this, you know, this is on the creator's journey, is when you know something to be true, you're willing to put aside all other, maybe you say, this is the thing that my soul needs to do. And yeah. This was for me, writing Gaia Codex was that. And it was done with the help of, you know, mentors and teachers, spiritual and otherwise. There's a long list of credits in the back of the book.
Yeah, I love that. Same is true of Why on Earth, actually, yeah.
Right.
It's so beautiful to be able to acknowledge.
Speak that with you, because I feel with Why on Earth has this similar journey of you're living the life that is true for your soul. And I feel very fortunate. We're fortunate to be able to live that path, and it's one that I wish for all beings on the planet, that we can live those lives that are true to the essence of our soul and true to the essence of well-being for all beings.
Yes, beautiful. Amen, aho, to that. It's interesting for me, sometimes as insights show up, I have this experience that it's moving through me. It's more of a receptive experience than it is a sort of generative yang mental thing. And it's an exquisite experience sometimes. I've had days writing where I sit down as if I'm gonna now watch a movie or read somebody else's writing as it unfolds. There's so much that can show up that we didn't necessarily consciously have ahead of time.
Exactly, yeah. I find the creative process very similar. And I've done some workshops with women around that, around illuminated creation, the art of visionary writing. I haven't done those for a couple of years, but the process is very similar to me. For me, and you know, you'd spoken that you're working on a fiction work as well right now, is that it's like going into a virtual world, quote unquote. And I'm almost transcribing, right? I'm tasting, feeling, touching inside of the character, and I'm writing it down. I did find in the beginning of the book, though, there was a mandala of writing Gaia Codex. There was a mandala of key transmission points that were the blueprint or template, you know, for what wanted to come through. And then it's listening and crafting the narrative and listening to the world and letting the world be birthed through us to become part of this reality here in this world.
Beautiful. So you mentioned women's circles, and I'm so eager to ask you some questions about the work you're doing, the story that you're sharing, as it relates. The main character's a woman, Lila or Sophia, and she's being taught a number of ancient esoteric secrets, knowledge, wisdom that's been passed down through lineages of women. Of course, this is something that shows up in cultures all over the world. Our modern American global economic culture, I think it seems, has lost a lot of that, or at least it's more underground. And I'm just so curious for you. I know you interact with me, I'm a man, all kinds of other people, and that you're also doing particular work in circles of women. Can you talk to us about what's going on in circles of women that is different from when you're interacting with men?
It's such an interesting question. I think fundamentally, and maybe many women might not agree with me, but I think in essence, and most ancient teachings go to this, is that we are both, right, and all different variations of male, yin and yang, right? And I think right now so much of it is really the rebalancing of the male and female. And I feel like a lot of my work, our work, is just reactivating the feminine lineage lines, reactivating the connection, because it's almost, you can think of if it is a mycelial network of lineage, right? A lot of this has been broken in our generation and the generations past, that has connected us to the wisdom of all different traditions for the feminine and also the masculine.
Yes.
And I think right now we are reconnecting, reweaving, going back to honoring these indigenous traditions from all of us, whether we are of Native American, Aboriginal, of Celtic, all of us are indigenous if we go back into our roots. I mean, my family lines are Northern European, and there is ritual lines that were there. There's ways of living with the earth. So I think for the feminine part right now, it's a rebalancing, right? But it's also, I think, a rebirth for the masculine right now, and for Homo sapiens as a whole. And the book goes into it. What is it when we become? Part of me wants to say post-Homo sapien, but I think we're at this point of the evolutionary cusp where either we rebirth ourselves as a species, and that means becoming more Gaia resonant, in my understanding, or we don't.
So more Gaia resonant, and by the way, I want to make sure the term mycelial was used. I know a lot of our audience knows this term, but there may be a few of you out there who are just getting acquainted. So the mycelial networks are hyper-intelligent neural networks that live in soil and are of the fungal species, and that are basically the information superhighways connecting all the living plants and the microbiome that is in the soil. And we know our science is discovering so much just in the last 10 years with our ability to see the very small in a way we've never been able to before with technology, at least that we remember. We are being now able to understand the complexity that exists in just a yard, just a park, just a square mile of pasture land. Complexity that dwarfs all of our human technology. And so when we use that as a meme, as a symbol for something, it's so potent, literally and figuratively. And I'm wondering for you what mycelial, how that resonates in the work that you're doing, and how you're seeing that get expressed in story, in Gaia Codex and elsewhere.
I've really been feeling this in meditation, and when I am up at the farm, which we are often, right now we're taping this in the city.
Yeah.
But, the deep interconnectivity of our consciousness with each other, with our actual cells, with the matter, the mother, the matter of our body. I've really been in this contemplation of, it's all about our interconnectivity with each other and with all life. And if a species, if more and more of us can begin to have that, not just that theoretical understanding, but that experience, then we can, I believe, really start to make different decisions in our politics, in our economics, in how we're creating cities and how we're creating community. It is that deep sense of interconnectivity that's, at the heart of Buddhism. The Dalai Lama talks about it. It's at the heart of the web of life that so many native traditions, indigenous traditions talk about. And, on a personal level, it's interesting, it's almost like these little gifts. I've been feeling it just in meditations at a different level, like yet again, with meditation and consciousness. From my understanding thus far, it's ever evolving, right? And it keeps to evolve. But I feel this deep interconnectivity with Gaia at this level that, we truly are her and of her. And I just really pray that, many of us start to really feel that sweetness. And start to create the new story that we're creating together from that place.
It's so beautiful to feel the sweetness. When we're talking about evolution of consciousness, this is a pretty lofty concept, really, on one level. But on another level, to frame that in terms of awareness around things like mycelial networks, it's so grounded. And I'm struck by your approach to a changing consciousness. And where do you think we're headed? What do you foresee as possible?
I love some of the conversations we were having prior to the tape going on.
Yeah.
It's so playful. Well, I think the timelines are, I think before, I was born in 1965, so we would think of the future, right? And it would be in 30 years or 40 years, it would be right now, and we would have these different visions of the future, but I think everything is transforming so quickly right now that the future becomes 6 months, it becomes tomorrow, it becomes 3 years, it becomes 5 years. And I think, we're very much, as a culture, as a species, in this present moment of the decisions that we make right now are really seeding, as they always do, the future in this place and way of interconnectivity. But what I would love is that, say, if we look out in 3 years, that we are well on our way to creating regenerative communities and networks of communities. This web of farm permaculture communities that we were talking about. Integration, it's not like the end of cities or something, but an integration of life in the city with life back to the land. That we're well on our way as a people to doing that. And it's a lot of work. It's like growing a garden. I've been working with the gardens at Rhine Valley Farm now, slowly, and we're coming into our 5th year, and I'm just learning, and I grew up with milking the goat when I was a kid in seasonal gardens in Southern California, so there is some small understanding, but it'll take time, but we'll be growing our garden together. Humanity will be growing their garden together, and would love to see that. And in 20, 25 years, I would love to see the rebirth of the species, that is possible, and peace, I think right now, the more many of us can be meditating or coming together in women's circles, men's circles, women and men's circles, transgendered circles, all that aside, just in human circles, and that we're really holding that core essence pulse. Amma talks about, to imagine all these kind of flutter petals of light coming down, and just nectared light coming into the hearts of all beings on the planet. If we can have it from above and have it from below and have it flowering forth.
So many traditions talk about light, and in the fairly well-known Western Judeo-Christian creation story, the initial gesture of creation is light. Let there be light, fiat lux. Yeah. And light shows up in so many different traditions in so many different ways. And we truly are light beings. And I don't necessarily mean this in the metaphysical sense, although that may also be true. Literally in the physical sense, we are vibrational beings of light and other subatomic mysteries. We can call it particles, is a really strange term to use.
I love that term, mysteries, thank you.
Yeah, and there's this quote I came across just the other day from Einstein about how we are each, human beings are each, eternal vibrational beings cloaked in living, miraculously complex organisms of microbiology. And
thank you, Einstein. Again.
That's science.
Right.
It's so the way we can come to understand light and then work with it. It is what animates life on the planet. Literally with the inbound solar photons coming in contact with the chlorophyll of the photosynthesizing plants. That's what kicks off this whole chain of life on Earth, on Gaia. So what might you share with us about light that, not giving it all away from the book, but what is that for you, and how does that play into your day-to-day, week-to-week practices?
It's interesting. I love that you're asking this, because over the last month or two, I've really put more of a focus, even just on, how to really maintain the vibrational frequency of this material body, and in a lot of different ways. I'm just over the arc of, as a female going through menopause. So that's an interesting initiation, because all of a sudden, like in adolescence, you receive a new body. So it's this wonderful opportunity to okay, I have a new physical body, certainly biochemically, right? How do I start to rebuild that up? And the way that I'm approaching it is how to rebuild it up with really, in the Avatamsaka Sutra and it's a Mahayana text, they talk about the Buddha body really being, as you're discussing, as you were saying, this body of light. So how can I start to daily rebuild the frequency of the light cells? And in practice, in the farm, I try to walk in the first thing in the morning in the forest. And they've done studies where, most of these have been done in Germany and Japan. These stories that when people are in the forest, it actually increases what they call this is kind of a strange name for it, the killer cells. But what it is your immune system.
Mhm.
It's the protection system that's there on each one of the cells. There's this kind of like round of cells that will keep the cells healthy. So 40%, if you're in the forest, those increase their efficiency up 40%. I walk in the forest. I've been starting to, in my morning coffee, take very specific medicinal mushroom mixtures
Mhm.
and roots, ashwagandha, chaga, lion's mane, just very, very homeopathic amounts. Which if there's, for women watching, I found that has been very effective. This is maybe more, I actually, you, in menopause you can start to bloat and the body feels very strange, but it's just over a year's course that balanced it out. I naturally lost like 15 pounds that I had gained from like inflammation that was happening just by doing that without dieting. And then I meditate every day and really work with, this understanding of the light body here, but also its interconnectivity with all of Gaia. And there's, some specific Gaia meditations that really work with the microcosm and the macrocosm. And a daily prayer of gratitude, deep gratitude.
So important.
And lots of times of loved ones, good food, growing food, using fresh food.
Yes, yes. And the
creating.
creating, yeah. I love the gratitude.
The gratitude is key, right? We have this precious life, this precious incarnation. How do we use it for the benefit of all beings and the benefit of all life?
I've heard it said, and it may be a stretch for some of my friends out there who are taking steps toward a way of experiencing reality, but I've heard it said that to experience being a human on planet Earth from a cosmic perspective is like winning the cosmic lottery. And apparently I've heard it said that there are lots and lots of beings who would just love to have this experience.
Yeah.
And sure, it's hard. There's so much challenge and strife and hardships that we can encounter here. Yet it's such an exquisite direct experience of the magnificence of a creative divine force, and one with which we each get to participate and play.
Yeah.
What a joy. Oh my goodness gracious.
It's so amazing, right?
Yeah.
And it's such, I think one of the gifts, the quest that we have right now is how do we bring light to material form? And I think in many ways, and certainly there's exceptions like Einstein and all his transmission, or even that's interesting. It was the beginning of the last century. A lot of the Impressionist artists, Van Gogh, Monet, were really seeing matter and light coming together. But right now, I think we are at this point, how do we bring more light, more understanding of that to material reality? Because there can be a density that I think this culture has cultivated.
Yeah.
What's real is real, what's not real is not real, and I think that was there for a lot of the 20th century, and even, that sort of overall in the Industrial Revolution, there was a density to it.
Yes.
And so as we reanimate, our perception and our experience in material reality, we can begin also to reanimate and, revivify ourselves, our culture, and what it is to be here.
I love this reanimation and revivification. It's so related to a lot of the community mobilization work that we're doing with the Y on Earth community, and of course so many different organizations and people are mobilizing now worldwide around specific simple things like planting trees, like composting, like regenerating soil. And oddly enough, we may not always think of these things in such a manner, but what that is working with light, working with life force, working with living creatures. And again, at the super microscopic scale, what's happening is all kinds of light transmission is underway. We can't necessarily see. Of course, what we see is such a thin, small part of the total spectrum of light. But right outside the window here is Central Park. We have this exquisite view. And what's going on out there with all those living trees and organisms in the soil and squirrels and pigeons is a massive orchestra of light.
It's so amazing. And these trees down in Central Park, they work overtime.
Yes.
I was talking with my husband, and I was saying, like, they're like the bodhisattvas of trees down there. Like they're they're like really, you can kind of feel it when you're down there with them. I mean, they're so gorgeous, but you go, oh man, compared to like, they chose a little. I mean, we can be fanciful about this, but just kind of play along with this for a moment. They chose the incarnation to really be there for all the people and the city, and they could have been in like a deep forest tree, but they're out there. They're doing so good. I love them so much.
It's amazing. It's really amazing. I know a few of our audience knows that I lived in New York City when I was in my late teenage years, and I would get up to the park as often as possible. It was really, in a sense, my only refuge here. And for us who are doing a lot of this regeneration work, I hear over and over that it's so essential that we're connecting with nature, with living green beings on a regular basis. And I know with the farm upstate, you have the opportunity to do that in a really profound and exquisite way. And I'm wondering if you might share a bit about Rhine Valley Farm. And when I looked on the website, it is so beautiful. That one image of the woman in the water has been with me for a couple of days. I mean, it's really striking. Could you share with us a bit about the farm and what goes on there? It sounds like a lot of beautiful things are underway.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, it's a family farm, and it's collectively held with my husband and my husband's children, who are not there, but they found the property together originally. And now it has, we have 2 other families living on it. It's 240 acres, 4 water, a couple different biomes like hayfields, and it really has become this sanctuary where we end up, almost every weekend, we have people coming up and going for walks. There's 5 miles of trails. There's a small biodynamic garden, which was started and really cultivated by Zach Wolf, who is a well-known. He lives on the property as well as down in Tennessee with Caney Fort Farms. I think that's the name of it, down in Tennessee. But when he's there, there's regenerative farming, but it really is sanctuary, and people will be in tears walking in the forest, and we're starting to open it up to many more people coming there at this time. The first 5 years have really been just listening to the land and what she wants. And people would ask, what are you going to do with it? What are your plans? And we've been tending it, but also really listening. There's the main house was built in 1788. It was originally an inn. There's historical barns. In fact, where kind of the think it's on the 5th of this month, there's a big, the Hudson Valley Historical Barn Association, where the featured barn, they're showing many barns, but the big party is at our place at the end, which will be fun. It'll be like 200 people, I think, big tent. If you're in the Hudson Valley, come.
What date is it? Because we don't know exactly when this will air.
Right.
But,
it's October 5th on Saturday.
October 5th, so it's going to be October 5th. This is the year 2019. For those of you who want that reference.
And you can come to the site, and if you're in the area, come. I mean, it's, it's what we're finding is, we were talking, is that there's a lot of these, I would say, like, there's, over the last 5 or 6 years, about the same time that we've had the farm, is there's almost like you can think of as like a web or a network of areas of, like, we have 240 acres, there's another property of 140, almost of these larger properties that are being intentionalized as regenerative communities throughout the Hudson Valley. And with people that are also understanding the energetic of prayer and, intention of co-creation with the land. And it's a very exciting place to be right now.
It's so fabulous. I can't wait to get up and visit, and to hear about what's happening in the region is just beautiful and brilliant, and it's an impulse, it seems, that is awakening in so many different regions around this continent, certainly, and worldwide, it seems, probably, for sure. And again, it's rhinevalleyfarm.com.
I would just also say quickly that for me, I mean, a lot of my work, I tend to be someone who's traveled into the future a lot through, imagination and through writing, and certainly travel around the planet. But the work right now with this being with Gaia and being able to be a communicator about Gaia it's so essential to ground the theory, to ground the vision, to ground the more esoteric experience in the day-to-day of tending the land, of being in the soil, of walking through the forest on her, of being in gratitude daily to Mother Earth herself in a very practical way. And so I find it's essential, and I just encourage anyone, maybe it's the park around the corner from you, maybe it's you have a tree in your yard or in your neighbor's yard or at the front of your apartment building, or you can just put your hand on the bark and say thank you. Wherever you can find her, just that connection of gratitude for her is so essential to, I feel, our next stage of evolution.
Yeah.
Without that, we become a different species. I mean, or we don't become an earthbound species.
Yeah. I've heard years ago was at a permaculture design course workshop in New Mexico.
Nice.
And we had an elder visit from Hopi lands and share part of the Hopi prophecies with us. And there is an image in the pictographic storytelling that's been handed down through many generations that has two paths for humanity in these times. And one is humanity choosing to re-engage in a respectful, gratitude, love-based, stewardship-based way with Gaia, with Mother Earth. And the other goes off into this, it's not quite clear, maybe techno-space, something else that's not any longer connected with Earth. And it seems, according to many of these wisdom traditions, what we have in front of us very much is a matter of choice and our choosing. And it's part of why we came up with the name Why on Earth. There's this Pythagorean why
I know everybody,
symbol.
but I just got my book.
Oh, yeah. The Pythagorean Y symbol from the Middle Ages. Why on earth? That speaks to the accumulation of our decisions.
Yeah.
And what a joy that we have so much empowerment. We have access to information that kings and potentates a few centuries ago could hardly imagine.
Yeah.
And so we truly have the ability to choose. And yeah, that comes with some responsibility. Yeah. And my hope, and I know it's a shared hope, that a critical mass of us is now choosing this relationship with our living mother, our earth.
Greta Thunberg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Greta.
Millions and soon hundreds of millions, the prayer of multi-generational, but you know, young people, but really multi-generational, making that choice, and there's so much hope and help.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, and you're talking about Prophecy Rock. I've actually been there at Hopi, at the Rock. I was there with Randy Hayes, which was. I think I have a picture of myself there somewhere in the digital files.
Okay, well if we can track it down, maybe we can include it in these in the posting. That would just be so beautiful to see.
It was before iPhones.
Before iPhones. Whoa. Yeah, I want to share something just on this topic of the practical, and I love it. Same root as practice. This is practice. And the last several days, here we are in New York City. This is a few days after the big climate march that occurred on September 20th. And that morning, we did a biodynamic ceremonial stir and blessing at the Union Theological Seminary. And we actually carried some of that with us down to Battery Park, where so many of these young leaders spoke about the imperative of acting for climate at this time. And since then, we've done a handful of other very simple ceremonies. There was one just the other day in Soho where we had a tree. There were about 8 of us. And you know how there's a bit of a box in the concrete sidewalk with some soil. And we were there for a few moments and we prayed. It was very powerful. And we shared some of the biodynamic microorganisms with that tree. And yesterday, as we were walking away from the United Nations building, we did another blessing, and we connected with a number of trees walking toward the west, away from the UN building. It's probable that people around us had no idea what we were doing. It doesn't have to be big and flashy.
Yeah.
It's really about those small, beautiful gestures of gratitude and practice that each of us can choose to incorporate every day. And the good, amazing side effect is our own experience, our own quality of life becomes so much better.
Yeah.
Better. It's better.
It's like what the Dalai Lama says, right? You know, if you don't feel compassionate, at least do it for a selfish reason. Practice compassion because you're going to feel better.
Yes.
Right? You know, it's kind of like the starter kit for doing compassion. But I think it's very similar to what you're saying, is this gratitude for the earth. And it's really, though, how can we not? You know, she's so wondrous. I love, I'm spent most of my life either overseas or in California. And so I'm really enjoying the 4 seasons. And just that, you know, when you finally get into, you know, the last parts of, you know, mid-March or so, and you go, you know, winter, you're ready for the new, and then you start to see spring, and then it's just this gratitude of like, oh my God, she's going to bloom for us again. And oh my goddess, how she does bloom. And she's doing, last year I was in tears. I go, she's giving us all this beauty and fecundity again. it's truly miraculous.
Yes.
Especially when you've seen the starkness of winter, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But she blossoms for us again.
Love this. Let me take a quick pause and remind our audience that this is the Why on Earth Communities Stewardship and Sustainability podcast series. And today we are visiting with Sara Drew, the author of Gaia Codex. And I want to be sure to give a quick shout out to our sponsors who make this series as well as our community mobilization work possible. And they include Patagonia, Waylay Waters, Purium, Earth Coast Productions, Madeira Outdoor, the Association of Waldorf Schools of North America, the International Society of Sustainability Professionals, and the Lidge Family Foundation. So thanks to all of you for your support, and of course, a very special thank you to all of you in the Why on Earth community who have joined our monthly giving program. And if you haven't yet joined and you would like to, you can go to whyonearth.org/support, or just go to the homepage and click on the donate button. When you join the monthly giving program at any level, I'll send you an email with a code so that you can download unlimited copies of all our ebook and audiobook resources, so that you can share these with your friends, your family, your colleagues, to help spread this kind of information to folks in communities all over. And I want to also mention, to get more information about Sara and about Gaia Codex, you can go to GaiaCodex.com. You can go to saradrew.net, and to check out beautiful images and learn more about the farm, you can go to RhineValleyFarm.com. And I want to ask, I have a couple, I don't know if burning is the right term to use, because one's about water. I want to ask a couple questions, and one is about water, and the other is about your experience as a woman. I think in these times, as we're healing, we're working to heal on the planet, heal ourselves inside out, and heal in the masculine feminine balance. I think we probably have a real need and opportunity to learn more about other experiences.
Yeah.
And I'm so struck, as you shared earlier, about this transitional process to menopause, and that as a big pillar, a big marker after the earlier transition into womanhood. What is that journey and that arc like? Will you share for us guys who don't have that experience?
Well, I feel again that I'm a neophyte in some ways. It's very fresh for me. That certainly there's women who have taken it also down into the arc of crone. But given that, I feel like I have gone on the other edge of an initiation with it, which has been very powerful. And again, the analogy, like I was saying, of that you're gaining a new body, but also a physical body. But also within that the soul is being reborn and rebirthed. And I feel there's a deep shedding that happens, is within the initiation process. And a tremendous amount of freedom and empowerment of self, that I've experienced within that. I feel, in that continuum, then I'm 54 right now. So, the crone, I've always loved the crone energy. Even when I was a girl, I would, imagine myself hugging my crone self, which would be older than I am now. And this really having that deep connection. I access her a lot. There's a character in the Gaia Codex, Old Woman, who I love. Her name is just Old Woman. So I very much am in touch with that part. I think there's an upswell right now around menopause and women, in that it's been something that for many generations it wasn't talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost, it was a silent and maybe a shameful thing, is something that wasn't seen as a rite of passage. And I think more and more women now are taking it on as a rite of passage, in to being the leaders, the respected leaders of our time. There's Margaret Atwood was on the cover of Time magazine, I think this month, for her new book coming out. And it's, I don't have a picture of it right here, just a digital one, but it was such a beautiful archetypal rendition of the crone. She's there at 80 years old. She's there in white robes, and white and red robes on her throne. And I think the title, says something, the reluctant seer, something along that side, maybe not the exact words. But to me, she represents, the wise woman that has been so missing in our culture.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to be seeing more of that. And that transitioning of the word crone, I mean, it means crowning, right? It means taking on the full crowning of a queen, and not in the popular, but of being a wise leader. Mm-hmm. And, I also hope and support that for our men. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but where we have wise men who are really coming to the fullness of being kings, and not, warrior bandits.
Mm-hmm. Right, thank you.
Who have grabbed power, but true wise men, and maybe there's hope. These generations that are outposting, that are wise in so many ways, hold that timeless wisdom. May we start to really birth, wise men and wise women who are there in service to all beings and all life.
Oh, to that.
Yeah.
Well, and I'd love to ask you also, perhaps as a way to wind up our conversation for today, about water. And this image again that's on the website of the farm shows a woman submerging into the water. Iconic imagery going back to some of our Celtic stories and others all around the world. What's your connection with the water like, and what is that for you?
Well, as people who come visit us at the farm when it's warm, it can mean going naked in the water several times a day.
Yeah.
To go swimming. It feels like the elixir of life to dip in like that, to feel her. And of course, we're, as humans, we're 70% water. The water of the planet is 70% water. We're a water planet. We don't live without water. That's why it's so egregious when we hear of our present administration talking about releasing, restrictions that have prevented the polluting of waters and opening those up, so it's okay to pollute the waters.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's
Yeah.
just, it makes me cry. And that's why I say that in many ways we have, at this point, adolescent, and I mean adolescent isn't the right word, because there's many wise adolescents right now.
Truly.
But it's a very young mindset to think that you can destroy the environment around you. And
I would even suggest that mental illness has many forms.
Thank you.
And
Thank
in our
you.
culture, we're suffering from a profound psychological pathology.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
this is at the core of our healing work.
Yeah. Thank you, Erin. Yeah. I can't say, I'm so happy we're here doing this interview, and that so many of us are coming together right now, and getting the opportunity to do this work and to do it in service, and to have an incarnation in a lifetime where we can be in service to this to Mother Gaia and this great creation that's moving through us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm so grateful and filled with joy that we have this opportunity to connect and to visit today and to share our conversation with so many friends out there. And as we're wrapping up, I'm wondering, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us about you, about your book? Anything you'd like to share with the Why on Earth community?
I could do the standard thing and say, please, join our community on the website and on social media, and there's a lot that is going to be happening over the next year, both in community gathering and both in some forms of the media that'll be going out. But with your acquiesce, I would love just to maybe sing a short prayer.
Please, that would be wonderful. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free. And may this time here that we've had the gracious opportunity to have ripple out and touch many beings now and through time. So very grateful to be here with you. Thank you, Sara. Thank you. Aho.
The Why on Earth Community Stewardship and Sustainability podcast series is hosted by Aaron William Perry, author, thought leader, and executive consultant. The podcast and video recordings are made possible by the generous support of people like you. To sign up as a daily, weekly, or monthly supporter, please visit whyonearth.org/support. Support packages start at just $1 per month. The podcast series is also sponsored by several corporate and organization sponsors. You can get discounts on their products and services using the code WHYONEARTH, all one word with a Y. These sponsors are listed on the whyonearth.org/support page. If you found this particular podcast episode especially insightful, informative, or inspiring, please pass it on and share it with a friend whom you think will also enjoy it. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your support. And thank you for being a part of the Why on Earth community.